The major reason why people don't set huge goals is because they don't want to disappoint themselves if they don't achieve the goal. You've heard the idea that high expectations are what create unhappiness. That is false. That is a fundamentally false idea. The reason people are unhappy is because they're not taking massive action towards their future selves and because they're living a disappointing life. If you set huge targets, and if you don't hit those targets, but if you make massive progress, you will be happy, especially if you learn to measure yourself correctly. So Dan Sullivan in his book, The Gap and the Gain, said that the best way to measure yourself is by only measuring yourself against yourself. So rather than measuring yourself against your ideal or against someone else, what you do is you measure yourself against where you were before. Ernest Hemingway, the novelist, said that true nobility is not about being superior to other people. Instead, true nobility is about being superior to your former self. The only thing you can actually measure yourself against is your former self, against where you were before. That's your only starting point. That's the only way to measure your own progress. And so rather than measuring yourself against where you wish you were or against someone else's results, the only thing you measure yourself against is where you were before. So if you have massive goals and if you've taken extreme action and if you've made big progress, but you didn't actually hit the goal, you're not going to be disappointed because you first off took massive action, which means you actually applied yourself, but second off, you will have made progress, and if you measure yourself correctly, which is looking back at where you were before, you'll see that you're not the same person you were before. You'll see that you're in a different place that you were before. So it really doesn't matter if you hit the target. There's a great book on this subject called The 10X Rule by Grant Cardone, and what he said is that you should take whatever goals you have and you should make them 10 times bigger. This is a true principle. I was once in a mastermind group and one of the speakers told me, look at whatever product you're selling and you should add a zero to it. So if your product is $100, make it $1,000. If it's $1,000, make it $10,000. Add a zero to your cost and then make it 10 times more valuable so that you have 10 times the quality of clientele. Well, the same is true of your goals. Whatever goals you have, and I recommend you have no more than 3. There's a lot of research on this. I love the quote from Jim Collins from Good to Great. He says, if you have more than 3 priorities, you have none. Also, Gino Wickman in his book Traction says that the businesses that have like 10 goals make 0 progress. Instead, you want to have 3 targets. So let's just say you have 3 major goals for the next 6 months or the next 12 months. Look at those targets. And by the way, those targets should be tangible. Those targets should be either a number, like a number you hit, like a certain amount of income or a certain amount of videos published or whatnot, a certain amount of blog posts, or an experience achieved. So you can tangibly quantify a number hit or an experience achieved. An experience achieved could be, for example, you go to Italy, or you finish the marathon. Have 3 tangible, measurable targets, and then back to Grant Cardone with the 10X rule. Here's what you want to do. Look at your targets and say, are they big enough? Chances are they're not. The biggest problem that most people have is that their imagination is too small, and their imagination and their confidence are based on the people you're around. There's a quote from Jim Rohn. He said you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. Also, probably your upbringing and your own expectations for yourself. So take your vision, take your big 3, whatever those are, and 10x them. Seriously, take whatever 3 targets you have and make them 10 times bigger in whatever way that makes sense. And then the second thing that Grant Cardone talks about in his book, The 10X Rule, is that most people wildly underestimate the actual requirement to the goals. Not only do people have wildly smaller targets for themselves than they could, but also they radically underestimate the action involved in those targets. And so not only do you want to have a 10x bigger target, but you want to take 10 times more action than you think is required to achieve the goal. So whatever future vision you have for yourself, you want to make that 10 times bigger, you want to stretch it out, and by the way, the bigger your vision for your future self, the bigger your leap will be. But the second thing you want to do is you want to take 10 times more action than is required. 10 times more action. So for me, for example, my goal is to reach 1 million people on YouTube or to have 1 million subscribers. If I think it's going to take me 1,000 videos published to reach 1 million subscribers, then I need to make 10,000 videos. I don't know what those look like, but I need to actually take 10 times the action. And so 10 times action. If you're taking action, and by the way, the research is clear on this in psychology, it's not motivation that leads to action, it's actually action that instills motivation, because as you take little actions, you start to build confidence. There's a book on the subject actually called Make Your Bed. If you wake up and make your bed, that's a small action, but it shows you that you're winning. And a little bit of confidence is built by winning, and confidence actually is like rocket fuel for motivation. You can be motivated to do something, and you might not be that confident. But if you start to build a little confidence by watching yourself take action, confidence fuels motivation. So as you're taking actions and making little bits of progress, then your motivation skyrockets. But also the same is true of inspiration. A lot of people think that inspiration is what leads to action. That's false. It's actually action that creates inspiration. So as you're taking action, as you're taking 10x actions towards your future self, you're going to get a lot of inspiration. You're going to get a lot of clarity. You're going to get a lot of ideas. And so here is the number one falsehood that people have towards setting massive goals. They think that if they don't hit the target, they're going to be let down. They're going to think they're going to be upset. They're going to think they're going to be sad. That is false. That is the worst idea ever. It's not hitting your target that lets you down. It's not taking action and making progress that lets you down. So I challenge you to set 10 times bigger targets and to take 10 times more action than you think you need to. And then if you don't get there, who cares? Because you'll have made way more progress than you would have if you were taking 1 times action towards a 1 times goal. So it's not about hitting the target. Who cares if you hit the target? It really doesn't matter if you hit the target. What matters is that you're taking 10 times action, you're getting way better than your former self was, and you're making massive progress, and you're measuring yourself correctly, which means you're measuring yourself against where you were before, not against anything else. That is the fundamental falsehood that people have towards setting big goals. And by the way, the research is clear on this. Big goals are a lot more motivating than small goals. You want your goals to be massively big. You want them to invite lots of inspiration, lots of motivation, lots of courage, and you want to take extreme levels of action towards those. And if you do, you'll have lots of feedback. You'll have lots of learning. You'll transform your thinking, and you'll have made massive progress. Then when you look back, you'll realize you're not the same person, and you will not be disappointed if you don't hit your goals. Very rarely do I ever hit my goals, and I am never dissatisfied because I'm taking massive action. I'm not dissatisfied. What I am is I'm increasingly motivated to set even bigger targets, and the targets are so big, but I'm so excited. I'm taking massive action, and I really don't care if I hit them. So it's not expectations that create disappointment. It's not taking action and not making progress that creates disappointment. So don't be afraid to set too big of goals. Don't be afraid of missing your targets. And don't compare yourself to other people. Instead, set massively big targets for yourself, which you're excited about, which you're self-motivated to pursue. Take extreme levels of action, and then measure yourself properly. And don't worry about not hitting your targets. I'm Dr. Benjamin Hardy. Please like this video if you enjoyed it. Please subscribe to this channel. Also down below, you can get access to my free 30-day Future Self course, which is science-based and will teach you how to become your desired future self. Have an amazing day.